You wake up feeling that familiar exhaustion, along with a subtle tickle in the back of your throat that you already recognize all too well from past experience. You immediately reach for a large dose of effervescent vitamin C, hoping it will somehow fix the problem before it gets worse. But here is something worth knowing. Taking isolated vitamins alone often does very little if the deeper foundation of your immune system is already struggling. A significant portion of your immune system's activity is closely tied to tissue surrounding your digestive tract, often described as your gut microbiome. If you find yourself catching colds frequently or feeling constantly drained, it may have less to do with bad luck and more to do with the health of that internal ecosystem. Modern nutritional science has spent the last 2 decades developing a much clearer picture of how diet and gut health influence immune function over time. Today, we are going to walk through a 7-day nutritional approach designed to support your gut health and, by extension, your immune system's overall resilience. We will explore what happens inside your gut at a microscopic level and how specific foods may help support a healthier internal environment. You will learn practical steps for reducing inflammatory triggers in your diet and for supporting the beneficial bacteria that call your gut home. By the end of this video, you will have a clear, practical framework for supporting your body's natural defenses through everyday food choices. The gut connection. To understand how diet might support immune health within a week, it helps to start with the underlying biology involved. For a long time, immune cells were thought of almost entirely as patrols circulating through the bloodstream, hunting for foreign invaders wherever they appeared. Today, researchers understand that a substantial portion of immune tissue and activity is concentrated around the digestive tract specifically. This tissue is often referred to as gut-associated lymphoid tissue, and it plays a meaningful role in training and regulating immune responses. Inside your digestive tract, you host trillions of microscopic organisms, including bacteria, fungi, and viruses, collectively known as your microbiome. These microbes are not simply passive passengers. Growing research suggests they actively communicate with your immune system in ways scientists are still working to fully understand. When you maintain a healthy diversity of beneficial bacteria, that diversity appears to support more balanced, well-regulated immune signaling throughout the body. Some research suggests these bacteria may help your immune cells better distinguish between harmless substances and genuine threats, reducing unnecessary inflammatory responses. Diets heavy in ultra-processed foods have been associated with reduced microbial diversity in a number of studies conducted over the past several decades. When your diet consistently lacks fiber and diverse plant foods, certain beneficial bacterial populations in your gut may decline as a result. This shift has been associated in various studies with less balanced immune signaling, though researchers continue to study exactly how significant this effect is for any given individual. It is worth noting that the human microbiome is an area of active, rapidly evolving research, and scientists are still working to fully map out exactly how specific bacterial strains influence specific immune outcomes. Much of the foundational research in this field has come from a combination of animal studies and observational human research, both of which have real value while also carrying certain limitations worth keeping in mind. Animal studies allow researchers to control variables precisely, but results do not always translate directly to human biology in the same way. Observational human studies capture real-world patterns, but often cannot fully prove cause and effect on their own. Taken together, this body of research paints a reasonably consistent picture. Diet meaningfully shapes gut bacterial composition, and gut bacterial composition appears connected in some way to immune function, even if the precise mechanisms are still being worked out. Relying solely on a vitamin C supplement without also supporting your broader gut health may mean missing a meaningful piece of the overall picture. Before diving into specific immune-supportive nutrients, it helps to first address dietary patterns that may be working against your gut health in the background. Days 1 and 2. Clearing the way. The first 2 days of this approach focus on identifying and reducing some of the dietary patterns most commonly associated with gut and immune strain. It is difficult to build toward better gut health while continuing to consume large amounts of the foods most likely to work against that goal. On day 1, consider significantly reducing your intake of refined sugar and high fructose corn syrup, two of the most heavily studied dietary culprits in this area. Some older research has suggested that consuming large amounts of refined sugar may temporarily reduce the effectiveness of certain white blood cell functions. This includes a process called phagocytosis, the mechanism by which certain white blood cells engulf and neutralize harmful particles, including some viruses. Some studies have observed reduced white blood cell function within a few hours of consuming a large amount of sugar, though the size and duration of this effect remains debated among researchers. This research is often cited in popular health content, though it is worth noting the original studies are decades old, and modern researchers continue to explore exactly how significant this effect is. Reducing added sugar intake is, regardless, a well-supported general recommendation for supporting long-term metabolic and cardiovascular health, independent of any specific immune claims. In practical terms, reducing added sugar does not necessarily mean eliminating all naturally occurring sugars found in whole foods like fruit, which also come packaged with fiber, vitamins, and other beneficial compounds. The bigger concern from a health standpoint tends to be added sugars found in sodas, candy, pastries, and many packaged snack foods, where sugar is often present in concentrated amounts with little nutritional benefit alongside it. Reading nutrition labels carefully can help you identify hidden sources of added sugar, since it often appears under a wide range of names, including cane syrup, dextrose, and various fruit juice concentrates. On day 2, consider reducing your intake of heavily processed vegetable and seed oils, including some canola, soybean, and corn oil products. These oils are common in fried foods, packaged baked goods, and many restaurant kitchens, which means reducing your intake often involves cooking more meals at home using more stable alternatives. Olive oil, avocado oil, and coconut oil are generally considered more heat-stable options, making them reasonable substitutes in many everyday cooking applications, from sautéing vegetables to roasting proteins. These oils, particularly when heated repeatedly or exposed to light for extended periods, can become more prone to oxidation. Consuming meaningfully oxidized fats has been associated with increased markers of inflammation in some research, which may place additional demand on your immune system over time. Reducing your intake of these oils, especially in favor of more stable fats like olive oil, may help support a lower overall inflammatory burden. It is worth remembering that no single dietary change, on its own, is likely to transform your health overnight. These first 2 days work best as part of a broader, sustained pattern rather than a one-time fix. Days 3 and 4. Feeding your gut bacteria. With some of the more disruptive dietary patterns addressed, days 3 and 4 shift focus toward actively feeding and supporting your gut's beneficial bacteria. This involves 2 specific categories of gut-supportive foods, generally referred to as prebiotics and probiotics. Prebiotics are types of dietary fiber that human digestive enzymes cannot fully break down on their own. These fibers, however, serve as a valuable food source for many of the beneficial bacteria living in your gut. When you eat prebiotic-rich foods like garlic, onions, asparagus, and green bananas, your gut bacteria ferment these fibers and produce a range of beneficial byproducts. Among the most studied of these byproducts are short-chain fatty acids, including one called butyrate. Butyrate has been the subject of considerable research interest for its association with gut lining health and its potential anti-inflammatory signaling properties. Some research suggests butyrate may help support communication between gut bacteria and the immune system, though this remains an active and evolving area of study. Beyond garlic, onions, asparagus, and green bananas, other good sources of prebiotic fiber include leeks, chicory root, oats, and legumes such as lentils and chickpeas. Introducing these foods gradually is often a good idea, since a sudden increase in fiber intake can cause temporary digestive discomfort for people whose diets have been lower in fiber previously. Starting with smaller portions and slowly increasing intake over several days tends to allow your gut bacteria time to adjust, often resulting in a more comfortable transition overall. On day 4, consider incorporating probiotic foods, which introduce live cultures of beneficial bacteria directly into your digestive tract. Traditionally fermented foods, such as unpasteurized sauerkraut, traditionally prepared kimchi, and quality kefir, contain a range of bacterial strains, including various lactobacillus and bifidobacterium species. It is worth specifically seeking out products labeled as containing live and active cultures, since many commercially pasteurized versions of these foods no longer contain living bacteria by the time they reach store shelves. Plain, unsweetened yogurt with live cultures can serve as another accessible source of beneficial bacteria for people who tolerate dairy well, offering a convenient daily option alongside other fermented foods. When these live cultures reach your gut, they may help support a more balanced microbial environment, potentially making it more difficult for less beneficial organisms to dominate. Some research suggests these bacteria may also interact with the intestinal lining in ways that support its overall protective function, though individual responses can vary considerably. It is worth noting that probiotic research is highly strain-specific, meaning the benefits observed for one particular bacterial strain in a clinical study do not necessarily apply to every probiotic product on the market. For this reason, incorporating a variety of naturally fermented foods, rather than relying on a single probiotic supplement, may offer a broader and more resilient range of beneficial bacterial exposure over time. Days 5 and 6. Supporting key nutrients. By day 5, if you have been following these dietary adjustments, your gut environment may already be shifting in a more favorable direction. At this stage, it becomes worthwhile to focus on specific micronutrients your immune cells rely on to function properly. Zinc is one of the more well-studied minerals in relation to immune function, and a meaningful portion of the population does not consume adequate amounts through diet alone. Zinc plays a documented role in several immune-related processes, including some research suggesting it may help limit viral replication within cells under certain conditions. When a virus enters the body, it generally attempts to hijack cellular machinery in order to replicate itself. Some research suggests adequate zinc levels may help interfere with certain viral replication processes, though this effect appears to vary by virus type and individual health status. On day 5, consider incorporating zinc-rich foods such as pasture-raised eggs, pumpkin seeds, or oysters, all of which offer well-absorbed forms of this mineral. Other reasonable sources of zinc include beef, poultry, chickpeas, cashews, and fortified cereals, offering options for people with a range of different dietary preferences and restrictions. It is worth noting that plant-based sources of zinc are generally less easily absorbed by the body than animal-based sources, due to naturally occurring compounds called phytates that can bind to minerals in certain plant foods. People following primarily plant-based diets may want to pay particular attention to zinc intake, and soaking or sprouting legumes and grains can help improve mineral absorption to some degree. On day 6, the focus shifts to vitamin D, a nutrient increasingly recognized for its broader role in supporting immune regulation. Vitamin D actually functions more like a hormone than a traditional vitamin, and it is synthesized by your skin in response to sunlight exposure. Factors such as skin tone, geographic latitude, time of year, and sunscreen use can all significantly affect how much vitamin D your body is able to produce from sun exposure alone. People with darker skin tones generally require more sun exposure to produce equivalent amounts of vitamin D compared to people with lighter skin, due to differences in melanin content. Immune cells throughout the body contain vitamin D receptors, suggesting this nutrient plays a meaningful role in modulating immune activity. Some research has linked low vitamin D levels with less effective immune responses in certain contexts, though researchers continue to study the full scope of this relationship. Because vitamin D is difficult to obtain in sufficient amounts from food alone, regular, moderate sun exposure remains one of the most natural ways to support healthy levels. Fatty fish like salmon and mackerel, along with fortified dairy products and egg yolks, can contribute meaningfully to vitamin D intake, though usually not in quantities sufficient to meet needs entirely through diet alone for most people. If you live somewhere with limited sunlight, particularly during certain seasons, discussing vitamin D3 supplementation with your doctor may be worth considering, especially if paired thoughtfully with vitamin K2. Working with a healthcare provider to test your actual vitamin D levels before supplementing is generally a more reliable approach than guessing at an appropriate dose. Day 7. A period of reset. You have now reached the final day of this 7-day approach to supporting gut and immune health through diet. By this point, your gut environment may be shifting toward a healthier balance, and you may be consuming more of the nutrients your immune cells rely on. On day 7, some people choose to incorporate a structured eating window, sometimes referred to as intermittent fasting, as an additional element of this approach. One common version of this involves eating all meals within an 8-hour window and abstaining from food for the remaining 16 hours of the day. Some research suggests that extended periods without food may trigger a cellular process called autophagy, a mechanism your body uses to break down and recycle damaged cellular components. The word autophagy comes from Greek roots, meaning to eat oneself, an apt description of this internal cellular recycling process. Some researchers believe autophagy may play a role in clearing out damaged or dysfunctional cells, potentially supporting the turnover of various cell types throughout the body, including some immune cells. It is worth noting that most autophagy research has been conducted in animal models, and the practical significance of a single 16-hour fast for human immune function is still being actively studied. If you decide to try a structured eating window like this one, it often works best to ease into it gradually, rather than jumping straight into a full 16-hour fast on your first attempt. Starting with a 12-hour overnight fast, simply by finishing dinner earlier and delaying breakfast slightly, can be a gentler starting point before gradually extending that window over subsequent days if it feels appropriate for you. Staying well hydrated during fasting periods is important, and black coffee, plain tea, and water are generally considered acceptable during a fasting window without breaking the intended metabolic effects. Intermittent fasting is not appropriate for everyone, including some people with certain medical conditions, and it is worth discussing with a doctor before making it a regular practice. This includes people with a history of disordered eating, pregnant or breastfeeding individuals, people with diabetes who are managing blood sugar with medication, and anyone with other significant underlying health conditions. For these individuals, the potential benefits of structured fasting are unlikely to outweigh the real risks involved, and other approaches to supporting gut and immune health are likely to be more appropriate. Closing thoughts. Your body is not a fragile system destined to be overwhelmed by every passing seasonal illness that comes along. It is a remarkably capable biological system, shaped by a long evolutionary history, and generally well-equipped to handle a wide range of everyday challenges. That said, chronic dietary patterns that neglect gut health and key nutrients may leave your immune system working with fewer of the resources it needs to function optimally. Over the course of about 168 hours, small, consistent dietary changes may meaningfully support your body's natural defenses over time. This approach is not a substitute for medical care, vaccination, or professional guidance, particularly if you have an existing health condition or a compromised immune system. Rather, it represents a set of general, well-supported dietary habits that may help support your gut and immune health as part of a broader healthy lifestyle. Reducing added sugar, supporting your gut bacteria with fiber-rich foods, and ensuring adequate intake of key nutrients like zinc and vitamin D are all reasonable, evidence-informed places to start. This is the kind of practical, foundational health information that often gets overshadowed by flashier claims, even though it remains genuinely useful for long-term well-being. None of these individual steps are likely to work miracles on their own, but together, sustained over time, they represent a genuinely evidence-informed approach to supporting your body's natural resilience. Are you interested in trying a structured approach like this one over the next 7 days to support your own gut and immune health, even in a modified or gradual form that fits your own lifestyle? Drop a comment below and let us know if you plan to give this a try, and which specific part of the protocol you are most curious about trying first. Take care of your gut, support your immune system with real, consistent habits, and invest in your long-term health, one thoughtful, sustainable choice at a time, rather than searching for a single quick fix. This video is provided for general educational purposes and is not a substitute for professional medical or nutritional advice. Please consult a qualified healthcare provider before making significant changes to your diet, especially if you have an existing health condition or take regular medication that could be affected by these changes in any meaningful way.